Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Contract, a Commander podcast. I'm Mike Allman, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Alex Lapp. Alex, what's up, man?
Not too much, Mike. I think we forgot a few cards in our last review. There were just so many. We had to kind of break it up a bit, and we didn't even get to talk about any of the cool commanders.
Yeah, see, like, you say forgot, and I like to think of it as, like...
Intentionally forgot.
It's meal prepping. It's magic meal prepping, right? We're cooking a lot of food at the same time, but we're going to eat it in nice divided portions. And that's what we got. So we're going to be talking about a lot of cards here. If you want to buy any of the cards we're talking about, deck boxes, sleeves, anything along those lines, you can support us by going to bit.ly/ADH_social. You'll also be able to check this podcast out on YouTube. We'll include a link to the show notes. Subscribe there. And then as soon as we get to enough subscribers, I'll be able to change the link into, hey, follow us at youtube.com/a set of words that makes sense instead of a suggested password.
Wouldn't
from
that be
Google
nice?
Chrome or whatever.
Yeah.
And then if you want to talk to us about any of these cards, we're going to have our Discord link in the show notes. I like to say all of this at the very beginning because somebody who is very smart at podcasting told me, hey, you should probably put all of that stuff that you say at the end at the beginning as well, so people are more likely to hear it. Seems like that makes sense.
Good point.
Let's talk about... not vegetables, but let's talk about the colorless cards. You know, the ones that some people are like, those are bland, but those
they're like they're like the grains.
Well, see, but those in the know, they know how powerful those colorless cards are, right? So let's talk about them and see, what do we think about them? First one, maybe one of the cuter cards in the set, a Clockwork Fox. 3 mana for an artifact creature Fox 3/2. When Clockwork Fox leaves the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and each opponent draws a card. This is nice. This is a friendly little fox.
Yeah, very friendly. It's carrying a watering can and doing the gardening, which is very nice. It looks pretty big for a fox. Anyway, it is a 3/2 for 3 mana, probably because it's a common.
I guess.
But
yeah.
I like the rules text. That's why I've chosen it. I like when it dies, you draw 2 cards and each opponent draws a card. There are a lot of decks that just want to get creatures onto the field and then get them off the field.
A lot of decks that care about
decks, sacrifice decks. Yeah.
Sacrifice. Yeah, right. I was going to say, I think the reason at the same time, it's like, 3 mana for a 3/2 artifact create. Okay. It's like, well, there's a lot of artifact reducers. There's a lot of cards that care about sacrificing artifacts or destroying artifacts or how many artifacts you have on the board. And I mean, the overall, card net here, when there's 3 opponents in the game still, it's not great, but it's still not bad. And I kind of like the idea of having a blink fox, just going around watering all of the.
Yeah, there's a 2 mana artifact creature that does the same thing, but it's everybody draws 1 card. So I guess for 1 more mana, you're drawing a card, which is not the worst thing in the world.
No.
Yeah, just an adorable little fox, distinct from Filigree Familiar, which is a different artifact fox.
we're gonna get the fox decks in the future.
Yeah,
just because
Fox
everything.
Deck. I think we have Fox Commanders already.
There's
in the Half-Tails.
Well, that one, and then there's the Aura one that just came out.
Are those foxes or are those Kitsune? Are those separate tribes?
Well, I think those are separate tribes because it is a fox advisor that does you can find an aura and attach it to it. Point is, everything is going to be a tribe in the future.
Does anyone remember?
That's fine.
Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix, the Good Hunting episode. It's like a robot fox from that episode.
Huh. Well, now you've given me some homework. I appreciate it. In the meantime, why don't you talk to us about our next card here?
Okay, we got an interesting one here. Fraying Line. It's for 4 mana. It's an artifact. It says when Fraying Line enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may pay 2 generic mana. If they do, they put a rope counter on a creature they control. Otherwise, exile Fraying Line. And each creature without a rope counter on it, then remove all rope counters from all creatures. So basically, what's happening is everybody is deciding whether to save another creature or just cut everybody loose.
Right.
This is a very interesting gambit, Mike. I'm excited to talk about it. What do you think?
I feel like most of the cards that have this kind of effect usually work the opposite way, where like you're marking something for death. And now it's like, oh no, we're marking it for safety.
Yeah, this kind of exists as well. The divinity counter, that kind of thing. Yeah. This does exist, but it's usually been like an activated ability that you have to pay mana to put into. This is each player is going to choose when it's time to exile all creatures, right? Or they can save one of their creatures. This is really interesting because if you choose to save one of your creatures, then obviously everybody else is, or at least the next person is going to have an option to save their next creature, and that could be a creature that you don't want them to save.
Is it Coercive Portal that has the Homage or Carnage? Like,
yeah, Coercive Portal is kind of like this, except it's at the start of your turn.
At the start of your turn, everybody votes.
You either draw a card or the board gets wiped.
Right. So I kind of like the idea of Fraying Line being hey, I'm going to put this on here.
Yeah. You all get to decide when the board wipes.
But the point is that this is cool in my mind.
Yeah.
You get to choose something when it enters the battlefield. So you're going to protect at least one thing.
Yes.
And then the next person, I kind of like this as like a mini board wipe, right? Because if you work this the right way, if the next person doesn't have any creatures, well, they're not very incentivized to keep things going around, so maybe they're going to wipe the board, but you're going to keep your one thing you care about.
That's the other thing is players don't automatically get to participate. They have to pay mana in. And when you have this combination of this Nev's Disc style effect where it can go off at any moment and wipe the board, combined with the slow tithing, the taxing of players, spending their mana on this instead of their spells and effects. This is really coming at them from both angles as far as a stacks piece, Mike.
It's a very cool card. I like
it a lot.
The thought process.
We've seen a lot of cards like this recently, but this is a really neat one.
Yeah, it's good flavor, and 4 mana is totally reasonable for something that could potentially be.
The rope is about to break, and we're seeing how many more people we can get onto the rope.
Yeah,
until it finally snaps. Yeah,
yeah, makes sense. Let's look at something a little bit more terrifying as far as like an actual art piece here. Mirror of Life Trapping. 4 mana for an artifact. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it was cast, exile it, then return all other permanent cards exiled with Mirror of Life Trapping to the battlefield under their owner's control. So, whenever somebody casts a creature, exile it, then return anything else that was exiled.
Yeah, the most recently cast creature is going to be temporarily exiled, and then when the next creature comes in, that original creature comes back, and the new creature gets exiled.
So, I mean, this is just okay. We're not casting things. We're keeping all the stuff. Cool. Token deck.
It's just very chaotic stacks, right? You're allowing people to play their effects, but they're probably not going to get to use them on their own turn unless they cast 2 different creature spells.
So, help me out. Rules question.
Yes.
If I cast something and it's exiled, and I don't get it back until after my next untap step, that creature never untapped under my control because it was in exile. Correct?
You don't get it back until your next... I assume that this is during your upkeep or main phase when you're flashing and you're casting another creature.
Well, okay.
Let me first one comes back. I'm trying to understand your question.
Yeah, let me phrase. I'm on main phase 1. I cast a creature. This thing is out. It's exiled. Okay? I pass the rest of my turn because I don't have anything else I can do. It comes to my next turn. I untap. This creature is still exiled. I upkeep. This creature is still exiled. I main phase 1. I cast a new creature. this creature comes back out. Let's say everybody just doesn't play any creatures between my 2 turns. Okay.
Yep.
My creature that I cast last turn now enters the battlefield under my control. But it wasn't there for any kind of untap phase. Mm-hmm. Does it have Summoning Sickness still?
It does, yeah.
That's nuts.
So the rule for Summoning Sickness is that a creature must have been continuously under your control on the battlefield since the beginning of your most recent turn. So whether that means you've cast it on this turn, or it entered the battlefield this turn, or you stole it from another player this turn and it wasn't given haste by that threaten effect, any of those is going to give that creature Summoning Sickness if it's a creature, right? If it's an artifact and it ETBs and it becomes a creature, it's still going to have Summoning Sickness because now it's a creature. Summoning Sickness is definitely going to get you. If it did something like phasing out, then that would be different. It wouldn't have Summoning Sickness because it never left the battlefield.
It never left. You just pretend like it did.
Exactly.
But not really.
So this is an interesting one.
Yeah, it's unlikely that scenario would come up because that's relying on a whole lot of other people to not cast a creature.
That's the thing, right? Is you're probably going to get your creature back quite soon. So this is a minor annoyance, but it's catching everybody off guard. They're not playing optimally anymore. I
have a counter to that.
Okay.
This is a great late game 1-on-1 card. I'm going to cast this past turn. Good luck with any creatures that you were going to cast.
Yeah, this can really trip people up.
It really can. It's a cool sequencing card. It's a cool tempo card as far as like, okay, I'm going to slow things down, or I'm just going to manipulate it to a point where I care about. And like I said before, if I'm playing tokens, I'm not casting tokens. I'm casting a card that gives me a lot of tokens.
If you're reanimating, you're not casting the creatures. If you're having them enter from your library or another player's library or graveyard or anything like that, if it's not cast, then your deck is probably breaking that parity, taking advantage of this card in a way that other decks just can't. So they have to play ball, but you get to cheat. Yeah,
it's a cool card. I kind of like it. And again, 4 mana, maybe a little high, but not high enough to where I wouldn't consider running it. I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. This is my favorite card. We're going to talk about Colorless here. Talk to me about our next one.
Yeah, we have Rug of Smothering. It's a 3 mana artifact creature construct. It's a 1/3 with flying. And Mike, we have an anti-storm stacks piece here. Whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn. Right. This normally does very little. There are a lot of decks that would love to have somebody just lose 1 or 2, or it'd be 1 or 3 life per turn. And that's fine. Belbay likes that. Somebody loses even 1 life, that's enough. However, if you have a storm or combo player and part of their strategy is casting an absurdly high number of spells in a turn to win, this is going to change the calculus on that, Mike. This is going to make it that much harder for them to pop off. If they have to cast 10 spells, I'm not going to do the math right here, but that cost is going to keep going up and up and up, and they might hit their life total to 0, and that's just it. They lose instantly.
Aether Flux Rugivore, Aether Rug Smothervore. I don't know what to call it.
The way that it's posed reminds me distinctly of the magic carpet from Aladdin, Disney's Aladdin.
Yeah,
it looks just like it. It's very emotive.
It's great. It's really it's definitely it's a little devious. It's like, hey, what do you think you're doing over there? Like this is.
Oh, I was just casting like 25 spells. Oh yeah, you got 2,500 life.
Might be my favorite. Might be my favorite flavor text again. No, not an accessory to murder. I'm looking for an accessory for murder. It is responsible.
That's a nice legal joke.
It's very good.
Yes.
But yeah, I am a big fan. I've got a couple of decks where they're not like competitive. They're not super high powered.
Right.
But their entire basis is, we've got a game where we need to try and play and finish in less than an hour. Like, it's like, hey, we can't play a long game. Okay, cool. I'm going to bring out my Thantis, everybody swing, goad, all that kind of stuff.
This will end the game that much faster. The game won't be able to drag on.
Yeah, it's another one where it's like, hey, it's just going to ping you a little bit each time.
Yeah.
And it's going to shut some stuff down. And a lot of that stuff is the combo-y storming off. Like, okay, there's a lot of sequence to this. This is going to take a long time. But it's like, you know what? It's pretty cool. And I also kind of a fan of the fact that it's just like, hey, it's a 3-mana artifact. Like, it can be destroyed. It's pretty easy to target in a bunch of different ways, so it's not like oppressive.
Right.
But for the people that it's going to hurt, it's going to really, really hurt.
Yeah, those people have to remove this because I'll tell you right
Yeah.
now, nobody wants to sit down for their storm turn. And you know that storm turns already take a super long time because they have to sequence their storm count, their spells, their mana. They have to
show
get all that
work.
stuff organized exactly to show like, okay, and now I'll grape shot for 100. Yeah. So when you add this card into the mix, now they have to think about their life total. They don't want to have to deal with that. Either they just can't storm off, or they have to remove this, or their turn takes an hour and everybody hates them. That's their fault, not yours.
Yeah. Sorry for stopping you from doing the terrible thing.
Exactly. It's a silver bullet, Mike.
Yeah, it's a silver rug. All right. Well, I've already mentioned mine. Rug of Smothering is my favorite of these, and I think it's because of silly reasons. I feel like you're a big fan of Fraying Line. Is that correct?
I do like Fraying Line.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've seen probably in the last 6 months, I think 3 different Ned's Disc style imminent board wipe incoming effects, but maybe not right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the cooler ones we've seen.
Yeah, it is. I think that's the best card of the 4 that we've talked about.
It's dangerous.
But I mean, like, come on.
I know.
But yeah, Fraying Line, I am, put it this way, if I'm buying cards, I am going to buy a Rug of Smothering or 2 because I like it. I am going to buy Fraying Line for as many decks as I consistently play. Because I like that effect a lot.
It's a really nice effect.
So from there, let's talk about the commanders from this set.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of... It's one of those weird sets where all of the multicolored cards that we want to talk about were all commanders.
Yep.
So, and we only had 2 monocolored cards that were commanders. So we just got a set here.
We did have a couple of backgrounds we talked about, which do sit in the command zone with your choose a background commander from this set, but they can't be a standalone commander. So we talked about them as the 99.
Right. Do those have a commander tax?
They do. They have their own separate commander tax.
Fair enough.
If you have them in the command zone, of course.
Right. So partner, but not partner. I guess that makes
sense. They're
sense.
basically partner, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Which one do you want to start us off with here?
Let's see. How about this one? Saravok, Deathbringer. It's 3 and a black, 4 mana for a legendary creature, Human Knight. It's a 3/4. And it has, at the beginning of each player's end step, if no permanents left the battlefield this turn, that player loses X life, where X is Saravok's power, and it has choose a background, so you can choose any of the backgrounds from this set. Mike, this is really nifty. We've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, it's... I love the punishment for... Things have to go away.
Exactly. If you don't have something, leave the battlefield, die, get blinked. If you don't find some way to fulfill his dark desires, then I assume his controller, the person running the Saravok deck, has stacked plenty of pump effects on him. Well, now it's 10 life.
Well, and then as far as the backgrounds, like we only went over a couple of them. But
there's a lot more that aren't necessarily political.
I mean... There's a couple that are, you get the benefit of sacrificing an artifact for something cool to happen. There's one of them is green and it just makes the creature's base power and toughness 10/10. So
yes,
that sounds rough with this guy.
Yeah, and then you're in black green, which is just a dirty color combination.
Yeah. Like even if you don't do anything, just like running this as another. Hey, you're going to lose 3 life unless you're getting rid of something. Maybe that you're running a treasures deck. Maybe it is a sack deck or aristocrats or something along those lines.
Oh yeah, treasures goes right through this.
You can do a lot of decent things with this. And if this is a deck that makes it to where your opponents have to plan out their turn a little bit more, or they forget and then they oh no, okay, I guess I'm taking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the idea that you're talking about though, where it's like, oh, just run some pump effects. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
just make them nice and big.
I'm going to giant growth on somebody else's turn.
You almost have to run like a Voltron package. The protection, the pumping, the auras and equipments to get him up and keep him alive, because obviously big target for removal once that power starts to get up higher.
Yeah. No, it's I like it. I do like it. I think the thing I like about it most is because of the background. Okay, I don't care about the background. Being able to make this a 2-color commander does appeal to me. And that gives it enough options where it's like, okay, what do I want to build with this?
Let's we have a little more time to kill in this episode.
Yeah.
Looking through some of these backgrounds, why don't we talk about a couple of these that might be a good pair with them? You mentioned one in particular, which was Raised by Giants. This one's yours. 5 and a green. That's 6 mana for a legendary enchantment background. Commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to their other types. That's a great call.
Oh, yeah.
That just fits perfectly with him. But maybe there's some more here. Having treasure in your deck is basically going to give you a free pass on this guy. So something like Guild Artisan, which is a background for 1 and a red, commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, create 2 treasure tokens. So now you always have, even if you don't necessarily have anything you can kill off, blink, leave the battlefield, you'll at least have a treasure you can waste to avoid hitting yourself with your own commander.
Well, and then think about the cards that care about what happens when you lose life or when opponents lose life. Like, you can just turn this into a life loss deck.
Sure.
Pretty easily. Like, you don't even have to add anything to it. So the ability of being able to add something to it, another color, is just kind of an added bonus. Overall, I like him. I like Sarevok.
It's got options.
Let's talk about Baloth Baratil, Entertainer. Definitely got kind of a diva vibe going on, and I dig it. Elf Shaman 2/5. Creatures your opponents control with power less than Baloth Baratil's power are goaded. Whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token. Choose a background.
Yeah, wow.
This is fun! This is really fun!
This is really good. Yeah, if you pump them up just a bit, I mean, every single creature, or almost every creature that your opponents control, are goaded. And they're just going to be attacking or blocking. They're going to be killing each other, and you're going to make a bunch of treasure.
I don't have a Gruul deck. I think I'm making a Gruul deck with this.
What do you you want to put this with the Raised by Giants?
I wasn't even thinking about which one. I just I know that I want to make a red and probably green this deck. The Raised by Giants, that just makes sense. I'm just gonna goad everybody all the time.
Anything less than 12 power is goaded.
Well, it's base power and toughness, right?
Nope.
Oh. It just gets +10/+10?
I think it has... Oh, I misunderstood what you were asking.
Sorry.
Baloth Baratil cares about his total power, and then Raised by Giants makes the base power 10/10. So you're right, it's not 12, it's 10.
Either way.
Right.
I mean...
But it's still, it combines with pump effects, you're right.
Yeah, that betrays is no longer... is fine. But, this is cool. It's not...
It got replaced by Turgid.
Fair enough. But just the, idea of... It's not choose or anything. It's just, hey, all of them.
Everything.
Power less, goaded.
Yeah.
So, that by itself is really cool, right? Even if you're not playing a bunch of pump effects with this, which you should, but if you're not... If you're going goad effects and just attacking or blocking creature dies, get a treasure token. This just seems like a really good, value-based commander.
Yeah.
That also has a thriving other ability to synergize with itself.
I think this is really cool. It's also a removal magnet, and when we say something's a removal magnet, that usually means it's really cool. But this is specifically really weak to removal because if somebody gets rid of the commander before combat on their turn, then they don't have to swing in with anything, which obviously people would.
Yeah, okay, because it's not goaded until. It's just they are goaded.
They're currently goaded. So if they have power less than Baloth, and Baloth's on the battlefield, and then they move into the declare attacker step.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, they have to attack. But if they do something on their main phase or earlier in their turn or on someone else's turn, destroy them, then right up until the 11th hour, they don't have to attack.
Yeah. So Baloth needs some really nice boots, be they Swift Foot or Lightning Greaves, or something along those lines to keep them protected. But overall, I almost wonder if this is one of those commanders that you extremely slow play until you think that if I can get to this board state and nobody bothers me next turn, I win. Or if this is something where you're just like, no, I want to cast this as much as possible to get as many goated creatures.
Because, I mean, as long as he's out there, even if you don't pump his power, you're still going to be ticking people off because it's their utility creatures, it's their tokens that have to swing in. So, I mean, there's no power small enough on him. I mean, it starts at 2 that people are not going to notice him. So if you're slow rolling, you can't really slow roll with him on the field.
Right. Oh, well, at least the Clockwork Fox won't have to attack. So there is that.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's talk about something else that wouldn't have to attack as we move on to our...
how about this?
Well, no, they would have to attack. Never mind. Let's talk about our multicolor cards. The Council of Four.
Yes.
3 white, blue for a legendary creature, human noble, 0/8. So, that's okay. We got
basically
there.
A wall.
Yeah, it just big wall. Fair enough. Whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. Whenever a player casts their second spell during their turn, you create a 2/2 white knight creature token. Just simple.
Simple.
Yeah. Get decent value, good wall. Feels really stacksy. Like, it feels like this is a commander that you run if your plan is to just draw out the game. It's a 0/8. You get stuff when other people do stuff.
To me, this doesn't feel stacksy at all, right? Because if you in any way impair somebody's ability to play out their deck, then they're not drawing multiple cards per turn, more likely. They're not casting multiple spells per turn. So I think you may have had a bit of a wires crossed. Yeah.
Oh, no. For me, it's just hey, this is one that I would want to play as like my stacks deck, where it's like, hey, if I'm not getting all of my stacks effects out, if I'm picking on one person or something like that, this is something where until everything is going the way I want it to, that's all my commander does. Because most of the time, if I'm thinking stacks, I'm not really caring about what the commander does anyway. I'm caring about all the other cards in the 99. But that's me. I'm not a stacks player. So it's not a wires cross so much as I just don't know how it works well.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's like your commander is pretty much inhibited by your strategy. And I'm thinking of this, I compare this to Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth.
Oh, sure.
Which is basically the premier stacks commander in Azorius.
Let me also clarify that friendly stacks. Like if I played stacks, if I played stacks, Grand Arbiter would not be involved.
This is an interesting one. It's definitely probably the nicest Azorius commander that you could probably play, except for Coin the Bunny.
Yeah, as far as disruptive effects, no,
this doesn't really mess with anybody.
No, this is and in fact, if you're playing this as whether it's in the 99 or you're playing this as your commander, there's a good chance that especially if you're us, like all you're going to be doing is like, I'm going to give extra value to people, but no, I'm going to benefit from it. Huzzah!
Exactly. To my point, right? It's almost the opposite of encouraging stacks. If you're running our group hug strats, you're running our political strats that are helping people's decks run better. They're drawing more cards per turn. They're playing more spells per turn. That is benefiting you directly because of the Council of Four.
Yeah. No, and it's not like I'm probably not going to, go digging for this card. I'm probably not going to make this deck. But, I mean, I think I saw a tweet from, I think it was Rachel Weeksley pretty recently, the entire thing was like, build the decks you want to play against. And if somebody brought out this card, I would be like, hey, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of dig that as a card. Why don't you talk to us about our next one here?
Yeah, we got John Irenicus Shattered One. This is 2 blue black, 4 mana for a legendary creature elf wizard. It's a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of up to 1 target creature you control. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on it and tap it. It's goaded for the rest of the game. And it gains, this creature can't be sacrificed. Whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, draw a card. Yeah, this is like a cross between... Well, this is...
It's weird.
Yeah, this is a really weird one.
This is blue
certainly
black.
in Dimir. This is very strange blue-black card.
Right.
Yeah. So it can't be sacrificed. That's a very important, right? When you're giving somebody a creature, or a permanent in general, them sacrificing it is probably the first thing they're going to do if it harms them in any way. But can't be sacrificed helps there.
I mean, a 3/3 for 4 mana, make something stronger, goad it for the rest of the game. Doesn't matter if John is gone. It's goaded for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So that thing is always swinging somewhere else if it's possible.
But how long is that creature's life for the rest of the game if it's constantly attacking?
It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
You know, if we're talking about, give me something. We're talking about a 7/7. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that a 7. Yeah. And there are things that can attack. Or there are things that a 9/9 can attack into. You know, Death Touch is there. Indestructible is there. There's plenty of things that a 9/9 can attack into. But the point is that whether you get to pick the biggest thing that you never want to be a problem for you, or you want to pick the thing that you definitely want to get rid of, or, you know, like the fact that John can go away, it's still goated. Not when it dies, but just when it attacks, you're going to draw a card.
Mike, I have a very silly proposition.
Never mind. I misread that, but continue.
My very silly proposition is, why not use John Irenicus' ability to target himself? Now we have some really interesting stuff going on. So that player now controls John Irenicus, who is a 5/5 that can't be sacrificed. But also, at the beginning of that player's end step, they can give away one of their creatures to another player. And the shenanigans, I expect, would only grow from there, Mike. Now, you're giving up a lot to do that, but...
Are you?
Well, you're not getting the card draw effect anymore. And you're not really getting the benefit of the spell anymore. However...
Well, hold on. Yeah, are we forgetting about the best card that we can think of? Assault Suit?
We love Assault Suit, but Assault Suit is in the 99.
Yeah,
a distant 99. Yeah, I mean, you are in blue, so you fabricate.
Yeah,
and fabricate like effects.
I mean,
for tutors.
If that's the worst case scenario, that's still not a bad case scenario.
I want to just start copying John Irenicus with all of the new non-legendary copy effects that we have and start passing them around.
Sure,
I can copy my end step triggers with all the effects that we now have for copying triggers, Shrinic Resonator, and we now have a couple more. We're just going to have so many elf wizards.
Well, that's a cool way to do it. You could also just, I'd like to Voltron John Irenicus. And then just like, all right,
just start passing him around, yeah.
And then just start passing him around. Okay, here you go, everybody.
We have shenanigans.
You have a John. I like it. That's not a bad idea. I kind of dig that.
I don't usually see a blue-black commander and think, oh, that's pretty neat. It's not really my color pair.
Yeah, because most of the time they
it's mill.
They do something mean, right? There's something that they're gonna do that I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I don't
usually
do
messing
that.
with somebody in a negative way. Yeah.
I kind of want to skip. Well, no, we can move down the order. This one, it's gonna be really hard for something else to take my favorite card.
I mean, this just wins everything.
It makes me so happy. Do we save it for last? Can we both like? Is it our favorite card?
It's my favorite.
It's my favorite too, so we're gonna wait on it. Let's move on to our next one then. Furkrag, Cunning Instigator. This is 3 blue red for a 3/3 legendary creature dragon that has flying and haste. Whenever one or more dragons you control attack an opponent, goad target creature that player controls. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, if that creature had to attack this combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on Furkrag, Cunning Instigator, and you draw a card. So, first of all, the flavor win of being called the Cunning Instigator and your entire thing is you attack with dragons, you goad other stuff, or you goad things that player controls, and then if they had to attack, it's going to get bigger. I like that. That's fun.
This is a very unique Dragon Tribal Commander. Usually they're all about making your dragon stronger, finding dragons out of your library, just in general being themselves a very powerful dragon. But Furkrag is going a very different direction. Just hit players with dragons, start goading things, and combine that with other goads and forced attack effects, and Furkrag gets bigger and you start drawing cards.
Yeah,
because it's any kind of effect that forces people to attack.
Right, so you're still wanting to do goads and things like that. The whenever one or more dragons you control attack an opponent.
Yeah.
So not when to deal damage, so when they attack, cool. I don't feel like this is, one of those, I want to flood the board with dragons kind of decks. You can do that, obviously. It's a cool way to win.
I mean, you're going to want one for each of your opponents.
But you're going to want
3 times.
Yeah. Right. So I almost wonder if this is less of, especially outside of green, is this a deck that's trying to get a bunch of, cheaper red-blue dragons?
I mean, I'm thinking dragon tokens. There are a lot of decks that can make dragon tokens, and those definitely count, and they don't have to deal damage.
I do. I am happy that Furkrag has haste themselves too. That is pretty good. It's like, I'm going to be able to.
So it can trigger itself immediately.
Yeah. And just I feel like this almost turns into a I want to make sure that the drawing a card on this just feels like a pretty good effect as far as I'm just gonna do the blue-red thing. I'm just going to do it in a really weird way. Normally it isn't goad and dragon combat.
Yeah, most blue-red is not forced combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like Furkrag. It's pretty interesting.
Definitely a novel approach.
Why don't you tell me about another that has dragon in it?
Yeah, Lozhan, Dragon's Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3 blue-red, 5 mana for a legendary creature dragon shaman. It's a 4/2 with flying. Whenever you cast an adventure spell or a dragon spell, Lozhan Dragon's Legacy deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target that isn't a commander. So we have a Is It Pinger. I have an Is It Pinger deck. It's really fun. It's really silly. And similar to my deck, this allows you to make some very political choices about what you choose to deal damage to and when. It can be used for removal. It can be used to the dome. You have options, and people are going to want to make sure that you're not blowing up their nice stuff.
I love that it's adventure spell or a dragon spell.
Yeah, you could go adventure tribal.
You could, but if we're going adventure tribal and we're 2 colors,
there's not that many. Yeah,
there's not that many, right? So and that's one of the things that I always get.
Dragons, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of red dragons. There's at this point with the 2 Dungeons and Dragons sets that have come out. There's a decent amount of blue dragons too.
Yes,
I love the idea of, hey, we want to give you the ability to do this thing that's more of a flavor win than an oppressive actual hyper competitive deck.
Yeah,
or hyper synergize.
I think any pinger deck is very mid to low power, right? Because pinging is very slow. It's not even necessarily removing the permanent in question. Going to the dome, you're not even necessarily dealing significant enough damage to kill somebody. So this is, it's fun and it's impactful, but it's not oppressive.
But okay, if I told you that I was making an adventure deck,
I wouldn't expect this, Commander.
Well, you wouldn't expect this, Commander, and you wouldn't expect it to be super powerful.
Oh,
right?
certainly not.
It's a I want to do this because it's fun kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if I told you I made an adventure dragon deck,
I'd think, oh, you use Lausanne
okay,
Dragon's Legacy. There you go.
So, well, yeah, I like the idea of it's like I can combine something that is fun and I probably haven't seen a whole lot of, and I can put as much of that as I want into my dragon deck, and it's going to have this 5-mana commander that, hey, by the way, next turn, someone be careful. Otherwise, like, you either need to remove this or there's a decent chance somebody's going to take 6 damage and I'm going to play a dragon.
Just start slapping Grafted Exoskeleton on there. Infect effects. I mean, you're going to make people's lives miserable.
Those, a Basilisk Collar even, just to give yourself lifelink on stuff.
A lot of the stuff that plays in pretty much any Izzet Pinger deck, a lot of the cards you would see in my Nin the Pain Artist deck, you're going to put them in here because you want to get more value out of not necessarily doing a lot of damage.
Right. But that works really well with the adventure side of it, where you're talking about a lot of lower costed cast, lower.
You're right, lower cost adventure,
right? But dragon,
right.
Dragon. I mean, you can do the most you can do the biggest flavor thing possible and cast a dragon mage with Losan out there. It's a mage dragon going on an adventure. Cards. Wow. Also, 7 damage. Like, this is kind of I kind of want to make this. I'm a little afraid that it would be either really expensive or it would be just the jankiest thing. And I kind of want to see how close.
I don't think it's going to be that expensive. Not many people are running the cards that support a Pinger deck. It's not a very popular archetype. Dragon's a bit more expensive, I would think.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. Like, man, I'm gonna have to look into that because Lausanne.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
This is an uncommon. This is our second uncommon commander. We also had the first black one, Saravok, and it's interesting to me. Usually, we really write off these uncommon commanders. They're too low power. They're not interesting. However, these two in particular, and I think we might even have a couple more. Not sure on that one, but
there's been a couple.
There's been a couple of uncommon cards that are not only at an acceptable power level, but also do something that we've never seen before.
Yeah. No, I've liked. We can talk about all of the things that, like, Commander becoming more popular could be good for, the way that Wizards develops things. It could be scary, whatever, right? One of the good things, and I think is adamantly a good thing, is if we have more legendary creatures that are uncommon, fine. If we have more creatures that could be the commander that do weird stuff, but are at a place where anybody, it's much more likely that you can obtain it at a lower cost, I like that.
Yeah.
Reward the creativity, and they're definitely doing that with Lausanne here. Let's move on to Boros. Duke Older Ravenguard. This is 4 red-white. For a 5/5 legendary creature, human noble soldier. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and myriad until end of turn. Another reminder, myriad is whenever it attacks, for each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature that's tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens at end of combat. This is kind of scary.
Yeah, this is a nifty one. We talked about Myriad in the 99 episode, and to do a brief reiteration, the reason why we've included this card and other Myriad cards is because just like with regular combat, with Myriad, you are still making choices about what you're going to attack with your Myriad trigger. Just because Myriad goes off doesn't mean you have to attack every player. And you can definitely use that decision to your advantage, Mike.
It's the fact that it doesn't. The fact that it's giving haste and myriad.
You can make some really, really dangerous non-legendary creatures happen. And the other thing about myriad that we didn't really talk about, we didn't get into the nitty-gritty. Everything that happens when a creature ETBs will happen for each myriad copy that ETBs, even if those are legendary permanents, right? Even if you're putting myriad on a legendary creature and then they all immediately die to the legend roll, Well, what
Before
happens
they
before they
immediately
die?
Yeah.
All of their ETB abilities trigger, and then when they die, all of their LTB abilities trigger. So you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to things that you think are good for combat. You can just make the copies, get the triggers, and then who cares what happens in combat?
I mean, make a bunch of Clockwork Foxes, and then
Yeah, exactly.
Let a bunch of
and then
them
everyone's
leave,
drawn
and
a ton of
everybody's drawing
cards. Yeah, make a bunch of veteran explorers. They all die.
Solemn's Sad Robot.
Sad Robot. Yeah,
took me like a couple times there, but like those are like this is cool kind of stuff you can do with this. You can also do some really terrible stuff.
Yeah, you could.
There's the fact that you kind of have to get rid of Duke Older Raven Guard. I'm gonna get there. Don't worry. The fact that you kind of have to. You don't have to get rid of him immediately, right? But you have to be wary of him. You have to have some kind of removal. You have to have something available.
You need that instant speed removal, right? Because on the same turn, somebody can play something scary out and attack every player with it all in one fell swoop.
But then here's the thing. If I kind of like that as the person playing the Duke, because if they remove my commander because the thing I was going to swing with is scary enough to where the Myriad trigger and the haste was too much, there's also a decent chance that the thing I was going to swing with is going to stick around because they removed this instead.
Yeah, and then you attack them.
And then you attack them the next turn. Yeah. And then you put Duke, and then you recast the commander. Like, it's a cool concept. I like this more than like the Boros effects of like the mentor cards and stuff like that. Of like, oh, we care about attacking with lots of things. No, this can be something as small as Sad Robot. I would like to attack with it and make a bunch of them. Haha. It could also be big and scary, and I'm going to attack with a very, very large, Avatar of Fury or something, things that are scary in Boros that you don't necessarily want to leave the second that they get on the battlefield.
You can also steal and threaten, and even if those effects are some of the weaker versions that don't give haste to balance them out, well, guess what? He gives them haste. So
I wasn't even
swing with it.
Wow, I wasn't even thinking about putting this in my Brian Stoutarm deck, and now it's like, oh wait, that's gross. Okay, fair enough.
Well, some good fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to see you there, the Duke. Why don't you talk to me about our next god?
Yeah. But Bane, Lord of Darkness. Is that the Bane from Batman? That's one white, blue, black.
Excuse me. This is actually one of the gods in the Forgotten Realms. He's like Lord of like murder and stuff like that.
Cool.
Okay, keep going.
So one white, blue, black. That's 4 mana for a 5/2 legendary creature god. As long as your life total is less than or equal to half your starting life total, which would be 20, Bane, Lord of Darkness has indestructible. It's a god. Has to have indestructible somewhere or some way to come back. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, target opponent may have you draw a card. If they don't, you may put a creature card with equal or lesser toughness from your hand onto the battlefield. We're forcing an opponent to make a choice. Do they want you to draw a card, possibly fueling your hand for next time, or are they going to take that gamble and have you play a card out of your hand, potentially for free?
Not mana cost, toughness.
Yes.
And I think that's the weird thing here. Because there's
a bunch of high mana cost with low toughness.
Well, because you're playing white, blue, black.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blue cards there's a lot of cards across the board that their value doesn't come from them being a big body.
You're right.
There's a lot of white cards that care about reanimating things that power 2 or less, 1 or less. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the amount of shenanigans that you can get with that effect, and even just the idea of like, I'm talking to the opponent directly to my left. One of my things died. They say no. They basically give you the option to play something from your hand. Even if you have the option, you might want to wait. Just like, I'm going to wait until the player directly next to me, because then, maybe if they give me this option too, because he doesn't have anything to play, otherwise he would have. Well, I tricked you, haha. Now I'm gonna play this thing, then I'm gonna untap with it on my turn, and waha, good times. Like the fact that this thing can be indestructible, cool. The fact that it can draw you cards, and if it doesn't, it can get you the ability to cheat stuff out. It's not even like you can sack stuff to do this.
Yes.
This feels like a commander that you could come up with some combos for pretty easily.
For sure. This reminds me a lot of Athreos, which also has your opponent make a decision when something dies as to whether or not you're going to get that thing back, right? In this case, rather than getting that creature back to your hand, it's, are you going to put out something that's potentially as scary or even more scary, or am I just going to wimp out and give you the card draw?
It's got a smaller butt, but it's got a much bigger stick. It's going to hurt me, but how is it going to do it?
This is a really fun idea for a commander.
I do like it. I feel like Athreos absolutely goes into this.
Oh, for sure.
It's like, all right, if I can synergize in a weird way, let's do it. Yeah, there is that. You could do Weird God Tribal. I'm not sure how you would get around. I'm not sure how you would encourage your stuff to die very often with Weird God Tribal, but still, it's a cool card.
I mean, there are a lot of gods that can die, but then they get tucked in or they come back to your hand. Right. They're not necessarily indestructible.
That's fair. Let's move on to our next one here. Maisie, True Sword Paladin. 1 red, green, white for a 3/4 halfling knight. Whenever an enchanted creature attacks one of your opponents, it gains +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Whenever an aura you control is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, exile it. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card. So, I get that this is a good card as far as just, hey, we're going to encourage attacking our opponents. We can give them little buffs, cool stuff like that. The first thing that I thought when I saw this was, hey, this makes the shiny impetus cards cool. I'm going to pump this thing up and goad it, right?
Yeah.
I like those I want those auras to work. So I like this card because it does that. That said, enchantments are a big part of the game. I feel like this by itself is going to encourage attacks to other people other than you pretty often anyway.
Definitely. This is reminding me a bit of Tyrannoship's Caretaker, where it's bringing those auras back to you, or in this case, allowing you to cast them again whenever they die. And if they're auras on your creatures, then the auras are probably going to be going to the graveyard when those creatures die, because that's what happens to auras. And then you'll have the opportunity to play them out again instead of losing them.
This basically turns every aura that you have into Rancor. You're giving +2/+0 and trample to something.
Right. And you also have a full turn. It's not till the end of this turn, it's till the end of your next turn.
Your next turn. Yeah.
Right. So you can make your next turn plan that back out. Definitely interesting. I think that you would want to run a lot of low-cost auras to put onto your opponent's creatures to, even if they don't necessarily do anything useful, just getting them on there, getting those trample and pump buffs, probably earning some goodwill by doing so. Well,
and then as well as all of your own stuff,
exactly,
like it turns into as much of a, I'm going to flood the board with stronger creatures. A lot of them are going to be yours, but sometimes they're going to be mine. Just know it's probably not going to get through as easily unless you're attacking somebody besides me, right?
Yeah.
This seems like one of those, I'm not going to say political, because it can be, but I think it's more of a good, like, I'm going to keep churning out value.
I mean, you want to talk about political curses.
Oh, well, yeah. Curses. And that was the other part.
Yeah.
Because, oh, man.
The curse falls off when somebody blows it up. You put it right back on them or on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think the fun thing with this is do you curse people and then you remove the curses from them. You get them back and you put them on somebody else.
So you've served your time.
You know what? You're doing fine.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, friend, you have gotten out of hand.
What did I do?
Here's a curse of opulence. Everybody go get him. No, Maisie's... I do like Maisie. I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly how I'd run it, but I know like what kind of directions I would go, and I think that's the sign of a good card. It's interesting enough where I'm like, okay, do I do this? Do I do this?
It's definitely not written in stone.
No.
Yeah.
Speaking of not written in stone, because it's the bestest boy,
and it's my turn.
I did it for you, buddy.
You are so sweet. Glunch. All right. First of all, let's just all take a second, Mike. Let's all appreciate just how awesome of a name that is. Glunch. Glunch the Bestower. That's a 1 green-white 3 mana for a 0/5 legendary creature jellyfish in a forest, apparently, with flying. At the beginning of your end step, choose a player. They put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. Choose a second player to draw a card. Then choose a third player to create 2 treasure tokens. Mother of God. Mike, was this not...
Go ahead.
Yeah. Didn't we just, in a recent set, have that Rhino card that was just passing out free stuff?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I wish this was a commander. Yeah. Well, look at what we got here.
Yep. Do you remember the last Dungeons and Dragons set where one of the cards was Flumph, and it was this jellyfish-looking thing? It was a 0/4, and it had Defender. Whenever somebody dealt damage to it, you and that person both drew that many cards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also
Slightly
remembering
familiar,
other cards like
right?
that. Yeah.
This is what I was hoping that was going to be.
Right.
Because this is a Flumph to me. I don't care that it says jellyfish. It makes me happy. It's fine. I love this card. I love this card.
I mean, this is a dyed-in-the-wool group hug card. There simply is nothing else to say about it. It's great.
A 0/5. It's going to stick around.
Nobody's threatened by this.
No one's threatened by it.
Nobody.
It's a 0/5 flyer. It's a good flyer. Like, it's... Okay. The idea that you can also almost always pick somebody for the first option. They put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. You are almost always going to be able to pick somebody that isn't going to mean anything. Whether you're putting 2 +1/+1 counters on something they control and they have to choose a mana dork because that's what they've got out there, or whatever it is, right? This to me says one player is going to draw a card. One player is going to get 2 treasure tokens. One player is going to be sad. One player is going to be mad. And I'm fine with that. Like, this is a cool card. Even at the best case opportunity. Oh, you're playing a Voltron deck? Okay, cool. Let's pump up your friend.
Yeah.
Like, just leave me alone, okay? Go hit somebody else first.
There's some, interesting hitches to the way that they've worded this card. And I'm always going to come at this kind of thing from a rules perspective.
As you should.
So this requires there to be 3 players in the game for you to get access to all of the modes, right? If there's only 2 players in the game, yourself and somebody else, then you're either pumping one of their things or you're giving them a card draw.
Yes.
Right? If there's 3 players, then each player will get one of these options. Then if there's 4 players, somebody getting nothing
left out. Yeah.
And you're still choosing one for yourself. You can choose one for yourself if you want to, right? It says player, not opponent, and you always have complete freedom provided the requisite number of players are left in the game. If not, then the first thing you lose is the treasure token option.
Right. Which, okay, what of those 3 things is the most powerful thing?
I mean, I would say it's probably a dead heat between the treasure tokens and the card draw.
So it makes sense that those would be the last two.
It makes sense that the treasure is the last one because I think that's generically probably what most people would want to pick. So as soon as your head's up, that stops being an option for you. You can't give that to yourself anymore.
Right. Which is fine. I mean, because I'm looking at this card, and if I'm running this as my commander and I'm in green and white, unless I've got nothing in my hand, I'm probably choosing myself to get treasures every time.
Yeah.
Right? And
the card
then
draw's
at a
always
certain
there,
point,
though.
yeah, and it's always there. So I've
I'm
got
a huge fan.
I've got probably 2 Selesnya decks already. I might have to take one apart for this.
Whereas I don't have a Selesnya deck, and if I were ever going to build one, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better option than
One
Glunch.
little fish is calling you. Glunch is great.
Yeah.
Like, all kidding aside, all like, oh, the power level, the blah, 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 blah. Build and play the decks you want to play against. If somebody comes to the table and they put down Glunch,
I would do everything in my power to make sure they have the best night of their lives.
Because they're our new friend. Because you
Yes.
know what? I don't care what you're running in your deck. Right now, we are on really, really good terms.
That's the thing, like, how bad does the rest of your deck have to be to erase the gift that is Glunch? You could almost run, like, the meanest stacks deck, but you've still got Glunch going on. You're still giving out the cool stuff, but we both know we'd probably be running a very group hug style deck with lots of gifts.
But I mean,
goodness.
even if you're not, even if you're running this and your whole point is I am going to try and get so much value off that third feature as early and fast as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to have terrible, whether it's I'm going to have a bunch of really big green and white creatures that are scary and terrifying, or just value and whatever it is. And frankly, by the way, that's kind of what group hug is. I'm going to give everybody else some value.
Yes.
So I can take advantage of the value that I want.
Yes.
But even if this is like the meanest version of this deck, at that point, I'm not going to get mad if it destroys me. I'm going to get like, all right. I wasn't expecting that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even that's a different kind
To
of
me,
experience.
this is very similar to Chaos and Tura, right? These are two group hug commanders, Glunch and KNC, that both are giving out group hug value, but they themselves, the design is completely open-ended. You can run any kind of KNT deck you would like, and it supports all of them just about equally. And it's more or less the same with Glunch here.
Yeah. No, Glunch is strong. I still can't believe that it's an 05 flyer. So it's even sitting there, no.
I mean, an 05 flyer, that's a good blocker.
That's a really good body.
Yeah.
And this is an 05 flyer that
Yeah.
on turn, assuming no ramp whatsoever, right?
You get it out turn 3.
Get
And
it
then
on
it
turn 3
triggers on
and
the
get
event step. Yeah.
and then you get 2 treasure tokens.
Exactly.
So on turn 4, you're going to have 6 mana.
Yeah. To cast all your fun stuff.
Right. It's okay, great. I'm going to pump up something. But like, if I pump up anything that's 3 power or less, or that's 2, not 3 power or more, I'm still going to be okay with blocking that thing. Great. So at that point, it's okay. Do I really want to draw a card, or do I really want to get some treasure?
Yeah. I might need to start drafting a digital list for this. This is just.
I think you do, buddy. We're gonna have to have
it
a
brings
talk pretty
joy
soon
to my
here.
heart. I haven't built a deck since Bell Bay.
Mm-hmm.
But it sparks joy, Mike. That's what they say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Glunch.
You can't glunch wrong. Now, for an example of glunching wrong, let's look at Commander Legends Battle
You
for
can't
Baldur's
do
Gate
this wrong.
number 422, which is the classic D&D monster manual style illustration. Now, in this illustration, Glunch is a horrible monster that's very scary to me.
What?
What do you mean, what? Look at this thing.
I think that's adorable.
You think that is adorable?
Yes. That thing is adorable.
Okay, listeners, you're going to have to tell us in our Discord or
What
on
are
Twitter.
you talking about?
Is special edition Monster Manual Glunch horrifying or adorable? I say horrifying.
Alex, I'm writing in my notes right now 105.
Oh, you're going to cut this?
No. I'm not cutting it at all. I'm writing in my notes 105.55 cute Glunch. So I know I need to impose the cute version of Glunch onto the YouTube
You mean
video.
the horrifying version of Glunch?
Oh my gosh. We need to change.
I won't be running that one for my commander if I make this deck. I'll tell you that.
Then I will. Also, if we're talking about flavor and being on theme and all that other stuff, being called the Bestower.
Yes, perfect.
It's so
perfect. It's like Zedru, the Great-Hearted.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have enough room on the card to include the flavor text, so you have to include the flavor text in the title. Glunch the Bestower.
Lore Masters, what is the story of Glunch the Bestower? Why is it so generous?
I'm hoping because it's a flump in reality, and flumps are really good about being friends and just wanting everybody to have a good time.
Excellent. Well, I think I can tell you right now who my favorite commander in this set is, and it's Glunch.
Well, your favorite commander in this set is Glunch, card 275 out of 361.
I mean, I'm fine with the two-tone border as well, 533. I just don't like the Monster Manual version.
I love the old-timey version. Is it because of the eyes?
It's because of the eyes. And
see, I think the eyes are cuter in that. Oh, man. All right. Well, I wasn't going to try and do the, hey, go look at our YouTube. I want people to listen to the podcast and be able to listen to it and get the full enjoyment that they would off YouTube. Right. But every once in a while, there's just card art or something
we have
that
to
makes
talk
us
about
have
card
to
art
dive into
sometimes.
it.
So
yeah.
Go look at Glunch. Tell us if the Monster Manual is horrifying or if you love it the most of all. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, go look at Glunch. And Alex, if any of our listeners or viewers want to contact you to talk to you about how wrong you are about how the Monster Manual Glunch is just adorable, how are the ways that they would reach you?
If you would like to express your wrong opinions to me, you can contact me on Twitter at Lappermedic, LAPPERMEDIC. If you would like to see my other project, the Commander Spellbook, we are the search engine for EDH combos, and we have all sorts of Baldur's Gate combos. I don't know if we have any Glunch ones, but I'm sure we have plenty of them in there. So go check that out at commanderspellbook.com if you like infinite combos.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe and rate the podcast, as well as subscribing onto YouTube. If you want to buy any of the cards that we talked about, deck boxes, sleeves, etc., you can again support us by going to bit.ly/EDH_social. Check in the show notes for our Discord link, links to everywhere that we're at. You can also follow us on Twitter at EDH_social or email us at thesocialcontractedh@gmail.com. Remember, beauty is in the eye of the Xanathar beholder. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.